Hi, welcome to the Taco Cast. I'm Crystal,
I'm Will.
and you're our audience. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Sunday.
Welcome. So today we're going to be talking about marijuana, Mary Jane, getting high. Uh, no, we are going to be talking about marijuana and the recent passing in the House of Representatives to decriminalize marijuana possession and use. There is a lot more to it, and there are a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of rumors that are on the internet that are just not true. So we're going to tackle some of the rumors, the misconceptions that people have, and try to clarify that, along with talking about does marijuana really have a place in our society, and does it have a place within everywhere? Is there anything good about marijuana? Or is it just one of those leftover things from the hippy dippy years? So let's start with that. Start with the hippy dippy years. Everybody got high and burned their draft cards, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to believe?
I think a lot of people forget that marijuana was actually legal in the U.S. for a really long time, and it was only illegal relatively recently in the
Right.
country. You could go down to 7-Eleven and get yourself a pack of marijuana cigarettes.
Not quite, but so marijuana became an illegal drug and scheduled as the same as heroin and cocaine, and that was done because of a racist individual who worked for the federal government, who and it has to do with the South. Unfortunately, it does when it comes to slavery, and after slavery was over with, he didn't like the fact that these Mexican, aliens who were coming up to pick crops, and blacks who were in doing farming on their off time, enjoyed a little ganja. And he said, "Well, there's no way for us to stop this. There's no way for us to make money on this." So they actually were going to just try to regulate it, but he went above and beyond and made it a criminal act to own it, possess it, grow it, or have any even hemp was illegal for a long time. Where we've used hemp rope since the Egyptians.
And clothing.
Yeah.
And writing.
Yep. Paper, especially paper,
Mm-hmm.
hemp paper. There's a lot of products that come from hemp, but he made it illegal for all of it because he wanted to get back, and strike against those who were enjoying their off time because the government couldn't figure out how to make money off it. How do you make money off of something that grows naturally from the earth? Mother Earth gave it to you. How is it, and it's bad. Bad marijuana. Marijuana, bad for you. I mean, let's just throw out that the fact that there's a million different medical uses for marijuana and CBD oils and extracts and everything else that comes from marijuana. And I am not a smoker of marijuana. Are you a smoker of marijuana?
Mm-mm.
No, we don't smoke a marijuana. We don't smoke the ganj.
What is that you
That
just
is
did?
us
What was
smoking
that?
out the ganj.
What is that?
We don't. We don't.
What is
That
the?
is me.
That was you.
Yeah.
What
So
was that?
we're not marijuana smokers, but we know someone personally, and I've talked about this before on my channel. I have a niece that was greatly benefited from the CBD oils when they never could figure out exactly what her issue was. She had really bad vertigo, and her life pretty much stopped until they tried every medication out there, and they tried countless different X-rays and scans and blood works, and nothing worked. They couldn't figure out what was causing her issues, but CBD oil gave her back her life. She was able to finish high school, go on from there, and now she is, for most part, she's an upstanding, and hardworking individual. She has issues. We all have issues growing up, and learning our way through this life. But CBD oil definitely helped her.
There's also the fact that people who are going through cancer treatment, marijuana can be beneficial to helping their appetite. Research out of John Hopkins. The research out of John Hopkins is often misquoted. That shows that marijuana helps retard certain tumor growth. Certain tumor growth, it also exacerbates certain tumor growth, and that's only been demonstrated outside of the human body. Keeping in mind also that you create what they're called endocannabinoids as neurotransmitters. They're rolling back to regular neurotransmitters. There's some that your body creates and then it'll use them back and forth. Some it creates just when it needs them and then gets rid of them right afterwards. And endocannabinoids are one of those. It took a while for us to discover, oh, hey, this... and they're named that because we discovered them. The reason marijuana works to alter human brain function is because it mimics this neurotransmitter and will affect those areas that these neurotransmitters also affect. But one of the things that they've noticed was that for cancer patients, especially people who are going through chemo, we have diminished appetite. It helps.
Nausea.
It helps get rid of both the nausea and increase appetite for some people. And of course, there's also the very limited benefit for some people with some kinds of cancers. And I remember when talking to my oncologist when this research first came out, and I had worked at a local hospital, and a lot of the doctors and nurses I worked with were like, oh, have you heard about this? You know, they're all coming down to tell me about, have you heard about this? Have you heard about this? So I go to my oncologist and I was like, you know, hey, I scanned over this research really, really briefly, and I have chemo brain, so I'm not 100% on this. What do you think? And he goes, well, marijuana's legal, so if you want to smoke it, go ahead and smoke it. It's legal in our state. And I was like, dude, I am a full-grown adult with a job. If I want to smoke pot, I don't need your permission. I'll just go do it. What I'm asking you is, would it be effective for me in this instance with my kind of cancer? And he's like, oh, well, yeah, no, not for your kind of cancer. And I was like, okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know. I don't need your permission, dude. I'm an adult. I have a job. I can just
we had a lot of people who brought you little baby food
Nothing
jars.
gets you free pot quicker than being a cancer patient. Literally, people would just drop it off at my house. I have no idea who it came from. With every couple of days, there's marijuana on my steps.
Little baby food jars full of marijuana. Oh my God, I had so many of them. But we don't smoke marijuana. But when it comes to,
I did in high school. I'll be 100%. I did in high school. I did.
Well, now you can't have a government job. You just admitted to it. Wait. Can you run for president if you inhaled but you didn't enjoy it? That's what Barack Obama said. So
no, that wasn't Obama that said
I think it was. I think it was Obama who said he inhaled a lot of marijuana but he didn't enjoy it when he was in college. But
wasn't that Bush?
Well, Bush is probably high right now. You know that old man's getting high.
No, I'm pretty sure
he's using it for, I think I might have arthritis. I think I might have this.
Pretty sure it wasn't Obama that said that, though.
I think they all should get high. Maybe they calm the hell down.
Let's be honest.
But interesting side note, though, I just recently read a study about the medicinal and medical use of marijuana. And part of the research that was just completed it was Cambridge University, along with a study at the University of Nevada in another medical hospital. But the research paper that they put out, well, if you've never read a research paper, they're really boring. Because they write them for each other. They're not writing them for us out here in the general public to read and
I'm going to do a
understand.
side rant about that. It's one of the issues I've noticed, and one of the reasons why consuming research is so difficult for the general populace, because they're written for people in the field who already have a background of information that will help them understand it. And, like I said, they're dry and they're boring. The couple of occasions where I have written papers, I have really tried very hard to make them engaging and to put in as much of that background information as I think is necessary. It overpads them, but I think that people who are doing research and writing these papers really need to make an effort to get more engagement from people outside of the field, because when you're not in the field, oftentimes you're relying on other people to translate this information for you, and if they're translating it wrong, you don't know.
Google ain't going to help you. But but back to what I was saying before is, So I read this research paper that was done on the medical and medicinal use of marijuana and how it actually affects the body itself. Not to, it excluded the entire brain chemistry and how marijuana actually affects the brain, the actual body itself, the human body, and the research was looking at was how does the cannabinoid and the THC affect the what they call deep fat cells. These are the fat that gathers up around the liver and internal organs, which is deadly. In ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know about deep fat, it is the number one reason why most people who are obese die. And well, with Americans becoming more and more fat, it's not good. We're not getting any thinner, ladies and gentlemen.
I definitely ain't.
Mm-hmm. Well, my ass ain't getting any thinner either. Sorry. But all right, so back to they actually looked at how the marijuana affects the fat, the what they call the deep fat cells. It actually has a technical name. I'm just using that as an reference.
There's different kinds of fats.
Yeah, but it actually instead of those fat cells growing, it actually mutated them, so they would not get any fatter. So I guess all of America in that reference should get high because it would maybe thin us down a little bit or at least stop the growth, around our, midline. So, but that's it.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, right. But so back to let's jump into the legislative thing that just passed the House of Representatives to decriminalize marijuana.
I think it's a good thing. I've been saying for a while. Before we move into this, I would like to say as a full caveat, I am 100% for abolishing all drug laws because I feel like they're unconstitutional. 100%.
I'm getting a divorce. Anybody available?
I'm of the opinion.
What?
And I'm of the opinion that criminalizing drugs is unconstitutional. Now, the reason behind a lot of drug laws is because they say that drug use increases crime. And depending on the demographics, the reasons for drug use, sometimes it does. A lot of drug use happens in economically depressed areas.
Oh, yeah.
You've already got increased crime in those areas. When people are desperate, people resort to desperate measures. You can't necessarily correlate drug use with crime because you have to look at why people are using those drugs. And if you're using drugs to escape from a very unpleasant reality, chances are you've already got high crime in that area. It's not just one thing. It's not just you get high and then you go rob a bank. That's not how that works. Anyways, my opinion on that is those crimes that people commit are already illegal. They are already crimes. If you penalize somebody for drug use because they might commit a crime, you're punishing them for something that they haven't done yet, and I believe that is unconstitutional.
So yeah, but along that lines though, the war on drugs and Ronald Reagan's approach to the war on drugs, they knew before they actually studied, before they actually passed the first laws. They did studies beforehand that go back to the 1960s that they knew. For that in that 20-year period, they had multiple studies that they looked at when it came to the war on drugs. And they realized that, longer sentences, tougher sentencing was not going to be a deterrent to stop drug use. And drug use did not, there are highs and lows in demographics like, younger, adults, teenagers may use marijuana at a certain period of time. And then there's a complete drop off for periods of time. And it's been that way, forever. It's never been a constant like, oh my God, it spikes up. They want to show you that graph, but if they're hand picking the data. But they knew before they actually began the war on drugs, it was going to be a failure. It wasn't going to be a deterrent. And they knew right then and there, all it was going to do was put more people from a disproportionate, social, economic, background in prison. And it was also going to hurt those of minority, in America. It was especially African American, Native Americans, Latinos, and Asian Americans. They knew it was going to hurt them disproportionately before they started the war on drugs. And by the way, in case you're wondering, the war on drugs was a complete, absolute failure.
Well, that depends on the metric you're using.
Well, right.
If a success is funneling money into cartels and increasing their hold
Well,
on other countries, then it was a success.
We had the CIA bringing in cocaine during the entire war on drugs. So why? And that's a factual, provable, statement. I'm not making that up. They actually got caught. They got caught bringing cocaine into America. So I mean, and if you have a war on drugs, you say marijuana and all these other drugs are bad, and rightfully so. I don't believe in legalization of all or decriminalizing all drugs. We have some different opinions. We have a wide variety of opinions here. The opinions are like something else that everybody has.
Yeah, but mine's better. You were saying?
I lost track now. I was thinking about that. I had mental picture block out. Now I have no. Who are you? Where'd that come from?
I'm your wife, and I'm amazing.
Absolutely. We already discussed this before the camera started rolling. But marijuana, I do not believe that it should be accessible to anyone under the age of 18. And I would actually, if I had to, if I was the one setting the policies, I would probably change it to 21 to 24, somewhere in there for use of marijuana, because of the sheer fact of the brain development. Your brain is not completely developed until you start to reach to the mid-20s. And when you introduce something like marijuana into the brain of someone before then, you're going to alter the brain. There's no way around that. But again, if it's a medical need, I mean, come on, dope that sucker up. I mean, you don't have
how medical marijuana works.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying, I'm not telling you to tell your 6-year-old that, you must smoke 3 joints a day. I'm saying, if CBD oil or whatever, if they need it medically and it can help them and relieve their pain and suffering or anything else. I mean, everything from arthritis to, dementia. They've proven that there are certain side effects, things that marijuana can do that can alleviate the pain and depression and onset side effects.
I want to take a side moment, speaking of medical use. A lot of people are interested in marijuana for medical applications because they consider it to be a more natural alternative. And
listening to Big Pharma.
I spent a fair amount of time as a rather woo-orientated person when I was much, much younger. And so I do kind of understand that idea. There's a whole fear of Big Pharma, and considering how pharmacies have behaved with some medications and stuff like that in the past, they're legitimate.
Or currently, with the opiates.
Currently. But one of the things I think that people often forget is that plants and natural-based remedies are really just medications with all their clothes on. A lot of pharmaceuticals that we have are derived from natural ingredients because they realize that those things work. The benefit to going a pharmaceutical route as opposed to just, eating a plant or smoking a plant or whatever, is that when there's research behind it, we've identified what that active substance is and how much you need to get a particular result. When you're just using plants in the wild that you've grown yourself, concentrations of active amounts can vary based on varietal, soil, and time of year. So those are things to keep in mind when you're looking at medicinal applications, is that something that's been processed for use is probably going to be better than something you've sourced on your own for those same reasons.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, I mean, we both know and have a good friend who is a DO, and there is a lot of benefits for homeopathic, intervention as opposed to
let's say
drugs.
Naturopathic, not homeopathic.
Or naturopathic. Okay, we can go
I
that
have
route.
issues with homeopathy because I think it's stupid.
Again, we don't agree there either. So
now I will put some background to that so people know. I've followed a couple of homeopaths, and the behavior I've seen displayed by them is absolutely abhorrent to me, including telling people that hyperactivity is because of vaccinations. It isn't.
Well,
And that
we're not talking about anti-vaxxers, so
no, 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 I'm
don't
talking
go that
about
route.
homeopathy.
Don't.
That feeding rabid dog spit to children is a cure for hyperactivity.
Okay, so but again, that might be an outlier. I'm
Very
sure.
well
I'm
might
sure
be.
that
Very
that's
well
not
might be
what
an outlier.
everyone in that field feels or
Well,
thinks.
the idea behind homeopathy is that you dilute something to be basically unrecognizable, and then you take that, and then that will cure you.
But at the same time, okay, so along that lines, though, I've read and I've actually seen the studies when it comes to was it? I'm going to mispronounce this, so you're going to have to help me with this. Psilocybin,
I don't even know what you... Cyclobacillin?
the hallucinogenic mushroom. The
Yes.
side effects from the hallucinogenic mushroom. Microdosing of what's it called?
Cyclobacillin?
Can you hear her?
I don't even know if I'm saying that correctly, by the way.
What did she say?
I've never heard somebody say it. I've just read it. So...
Microdosing of hallucinogenic mushrooms has proven absolutely, in all the studies so far, and they're actually really surprised by this. For those who are suffering from PTSD, for returning soldiers from war, and I wish I would have had that because it could have saved us, a good 10 years of me being a complete asshole. All right, so I'm still an asshole to some extent.
I love you.
But it would have saved me at least 10 years of my life. I would have gotten my life back on track and afterwards, a lot quicker than I did, fighting the demons in my head.
To be fair, there's a difference between microdosing and homeopathy.
Well, I mean, the homeopathy, they believe in, dilution of the actual thing till the point where it's almost unrecognizable, and that is basically what microdosing is.
Yes and no. With homeopathy, and there's a lot of terms, and they can be confusing. Naturopathy is not homeopathy, is not...
All right, I don't want to go down too much of a diversion here.
Yeah, with homeopathy, it's diluting something that would make you ill until you can't detect it.
Oh, so like giving bleach to your children.
Usually no, but the same circles that you find homeopathy in, you often do find that kind of behavior as well, which is another reason why I have strong opinions, because don't feed your kids bleach.
No,
Don't do
it's not a good idea. No.
But anyways, we've gotten well off topic,
Oh,
and
yeah,
I think
we did.
that's my fault. Let's
course.
move back to the
It
ganj.
normally is because squirrel.
Is that the phrase we're using, ganj?
Yeah, ganj, Mary Jane,
You're so old. You're so old. Stop saying it. They all know how old you are now.
Kush.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, what else do the kids these days call it? Mother Herb. Yeah, I've heard of that one before. Mother Herb.
Okay, I've heard that one before too, but it wasn't from kids these days.
Oh, was it old people?
Yeah, it was.
The devil's lettuce.
Also heard from old people.
Yeah.
Devil's lettuce.
I don't know. What do you call it? Put a comment down below. What do you call marijuana? I mean, I'd be interested in hearing it. But is there anything else that you'd like to add on this?
Kids these days, what do you call the marijuanas?
Well, I mean, so I want to quickly, before we wrap this up, I wanted to talk about go back to the actual legislation. So the decriminalization, all that would do is stop the criminal act from this point going forward. It would not retroactively release everyone from prison that is there for marijuana. And if you want to dive into those numbers on the federal and the state level for the incarceration of those who are poor and of other races and nationalities, you will be absolutely surprised how many people are doing long, drawn-out sentences for possession and distribution of small amounts of marijuana.
And to be
We're not
fair,
talking cartel members here. We're talking about people who dealt seeds, even, who are doing 15 years in prison for dealing seeds to grow marijuana. People who lived in Arkansas, in Alabama, those two guys, both of them, they grew it in a school bus. And they're doing life without the possibility of parole because it was their third conviction and they used a three strikes you're out policy on them from the federal level.
When Will was mentioning disproportionate effect on demographics. That's not because of a disproportionate use. Statistically, drug use remains
Yeah,
basically the same across demographics, racial, um, educational, socioeconomic. Across demographics, drug use remains basically the same.
yeah. It's absolutely true. I mean, but if you're white, you will see an actual a disproportionately lower sentence on the same crime as if you were African American or Native American or Latino. You will get a longer sentence. You'll get a higher sentence, restitution wise and everything else across the board. And they're more likely to throw the book at you if you're of something other, another race other than white. And that has been across the board, across the United States.
And that's
We
if
have
you
seen
even
that.
make it to trial.
Yeah, and you have to understand, most people do
Quite frequently
plead
they
out.
don't.
They plead out before it ever gets to trial because they want to get released. They want to go home. They have to care for their children. They have a loved one or somebody else that they want to take care of, and their lives are absolutely destroyed for something that never should have been criminalized in the first place because a racist drug czar decided he wanted to punish a certain portion of the population because the government couldn't make money on this item. And is marijuana a gateway drug? Never once, not any study has ever proven that marijuana was a gateway drug. People may start using marijuana and alcohol to self-medicate, but it is not a gateway drug to other drugs.
A lot of people do use
Self-medication.
self-medicating for underlying psychiatric disorders, or because they're not able to afford the medications
Yep.
that they need to treat their physical illnesses. It's a problem. One of the reasons why people often think that marijuana is a gateway drug is because people who are addicted to harder drugs, if they're unable to access them, they will use marijuana to alleviate the symptoms of the withdrawal that they're going through. It's a backwards relationship, not a forwards relationship.
I was going to clean my room, but I got high.
Oh my God.
Da, da,
You're
da,
telling
da,
people
da,
how old you are again. That song is so old.
Da, 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 da. Thank you for joining us today, everyone.
Thank you for joining us.
You have a great weekend.